Good evening, guys. Welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. As usual, I've got Ray with me. How you doing, Ray?
I'm great, mate. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm excited for this one because we've got a preview coming for you guys of this light heavyweight unification fight between Artur Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr. Now, a lot's been made in the media of this one, and I want to say fair play to both guys for, let's not mess around, let's get the unification made. But Ray, do you think it's as clear cut as the media are making out, or how do you see this fight breaking down?
I think it's going to be an all-out war. I don't think anyone's going to take a step backwards. I think they're going to meet in the centre of the ring, and it's just going to be a case of who lands the hardest punch first, who's got the better chin. I think Joe Smith Jr. is better than what people are giving him credit for. He's tough, he's rugged, he's really physically strong. His best win for me was against Bernard Hopkins when he literally punched him out the ring. He had a good win against Salida Alvarez as well. People will remember him with his two fights against Sergey Kovalev. He won one, lost one. He's really strong, and there's not many people that can physically bully him at light heavyweight. But if there's anyone that can, it's Artur Beterbiev. I do pick Artur Beterbiev to win this one by stoppage. I mean, he's stopped everybody he's been in the ring with, and he's been in the ring with some good names. Callum Johnson, he's been in there with the up-and-coming prospect at the time, Jeff Page, who he got floored by. He's been in there with Gavodkic, the Ukrainian, who he retired, and that's how he got the WBC belt. And also he's been in there with Marcus Brown, so he's had some good names on his record, but he stopped everybody. And I just don't see the result being any different. But I do think Joe Smith Jr. won't be deterred and will give it to him.
I don't disagree. I've got one. This is one of those fights, when you can be like 100% sure, you think you know how this will play out, and then there's one doubt, and that's age for me. Beterbiev now, he's 37. Now, I know he's not had a long pro career, obviously, just the 17 fights, obviously, as you said, more by stoppage, but he's 37 now.
Yeah.
And since he's came back from the pandemic, at times he has looked vulnerable, hasn't he? I know it's from a clash of heads, but it's a really graphic cut he got in the Marcus Brown fight.
Good point. Yeah.
Do you think at some point age will catch up with him? Let's be fair.
Oh yeah, as it does with all fighters. Yeah,
of course it does. Do you think that there's a chance this could be the one?
That's a good point. And when you look at it from a perspective in terms of how busy he is, yeah, he's 37. We can't change that. That's the static, or I call it static factors, and you can't change that. But what you can change is his activity. He hasn't been this active since 2014, and that was the second year of his professional career. He turned pro in 2013. He's now had 3 consecutive fights, really. He wasn't out all that long ago. I think it was back in December, was it?
It was December, yeah.
So it wasn't that long ago, and I think this is the busiest he's been in about 7 years. So yeah, well, sorry, 8 years. So I kind of think that should help him in terms of he wouldn't have any ring rust. He got when the pandemic occurred, he had that 2 years out the ring, and we saw that perhaps his timing wasn't there, and it took a while to get into the fight with Marcus Brown. And for me, in my opinion, don't know about yourself, but the cut was almost Marvin Hagler-like in the sense that he saw blood, his own blood, and that brought him on. That brought an aggressive side out of him. He was a bit tentative in that fight, wasn't he? He was second to the jab. He was a bit slow and a bit plodding. But I would also add, with the style that he's got, he doesn't need to be quick. He reminds me a little bit like Golovkin. He doesn't rely on quick reflexes or speed. So him getting older isn't so much of a problem because he's got the 2 big things that you need. He's got his power, which will never go. And I still think he's got a pretty good chin. A lot of people say Beterbiev's chinny. I don't think he is. He's only been down against Callum Johnson, who's a massive puncher, and Jeff Page. He was never down as an amateur. Never down as an amateur. And he fought some good names as an amateur. Just go and look at his record and find out. So I think it definitely plays a part, his age, but at the same time, he's never been as active as he has now in about 8 years.
Yeah, so yeah, I know what you're saying. I think, obviously we've been talking a lot because domestically, we've got Buatsi, we've got Anthony Yard, Callum Johnson. Obviously, he had his world title.
Callum Smith as well.
Callum Smith. And I think it's as harsh as it sounds because Joe Smith does get a lot of sort of not stick, but he's definitely underrated, I think. But it does almost seem like he's the champion that people would prefer to face, isn't it? You know, we've seen Yard go down the WBO route. And it does just make you wonder, you know, there's almost no pressure on him going into this. You know, there's already been talk of Bivol Beterbiev, obviously with Canelo facing Golovkin next before that rematch. There's already talk of that. And I just wonder, I just think there's no pressure on him. Can he just pull something out of the bag? The pressure is on Beterbiev, but I would agree with you. I think what Marcus Brown shown us was putting it on Beterbiev with that cut. I know it was from the clash of heads, but we still saw Brown, you know, put his foot down, and there was, you know, the referee told him you've got one round. It was like a red rag to a bull, wasn't it? So you have got to then be careful if you're Joe Smith, just how much pressure you do apply. So it's got to be a very educated pressure. I'd stick with you. I think, I do think Beterbiev will come through. And then I really hope Frank Warren's wrong and we don't get the Anthony Yard Beterbiev. I mean, we'll talk about it briefly. How do you think that would play out potentially a Beterbiev Yard fight? I think Beterbiev is into pieces.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see Anthony Yard after that fight. I just don't think. I mean, Anthony Yard's fresh enough. He can hit. Most light heavyweights can hit, but I don't think he's busy enough and active enough. When he fought Lindenhofer the second time round, he was on the front foot against Lindenhofer, and he was really aggressive, had a little bit of head movement. Lindenhofer probably wasn't expecting that. If you do that against Beterbiev, if you're playing straight into his hands, so you're playing a dangerous game, you need angles. You need to be able to box a bit more. Bivol's got a better style to cause Beterbiev some problems. Yard just doesn't have that style. Plus, Anthony Yard's quite small in height for Beterbiev. Not significantly small, but small enough to not be physically imposing on Beterbiev. I think a boxer's going to have better success against Beterbiev's style. Not like Anthony Yard. He's a bit too jiggery for me to have any success against him. So I think Beterbiev stops him comfortably, to be honest.
No, I agree. I mean, do you think we get the Bivol fight next? Obviously, there's a bit of a gap in Bivol's schedule.
Josh, I would love it because for me, I'm liking the past couple of years because we've seen a lot of unifications and a lot of fights for the undisputed. And what a fight that would be! That would be a real. It's one of those fights, Josh, that one night you might put an argument for Beterbiev, you sleep on it, then you come back with an argument for Bivol. You know, I know you and I have those back and forth discussions, but I really couldn't pick that fight. But I would want to see it. Whether or not it happens, I don't know, because then you've got the whole promotional issue, Top Rank and the Zone. But what Eddie Hearn has shown in the past is if an opportunity comes for a fight for the undisputed, he's willing to let his fighter go on a rival show and have that. We've seen it with Haney and Kambosos. So Hearn's proven that he's willing to make these fights happen. Is Bob Arum? That's a question for me. How do you see that fight though if it happened?
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to get splinters up my arse because pre-Bivol Canelo, I thought Beterbiev for me is top of the tree. I just thought he's his power, ability to take a shot. I agree with you. I don't think he's chinny at all. I think he's just been caught by two serious punches. I thought Beterbiev would just do him. However, now after Bivol has shown he can fight the perfect fight, and I know pound for pound list now, Canelo's gone from number 1 to number 6 or 7, which is frankly ridiculous for me. He dared to be great, and it didn't quite come off.
It didn't quite come off for him, yeah.
But Bivol showed he can fight the perfect fight and adapt. That for me, we've not seen Beterbiev adapt yet. I'm not saying he can't adapt. He's just not really had to yet, has he? In fairness, generally if he hits somebody, they fall. So
he's not needed a plan B as of yet, has he?
That's the thing. I mean, I think the biggest issue with that fight, as you've just said, would Bob Arum allow the fight to happen? I think the answer is yes, as long as it was on a top ranked show and he had the power.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think Eddie Hearn would, if he lost a purse bid or what have you, he would reluctantly accept that the fight's going to be it's over at the top rank, and he would allow his fighter to fight on the
Mm.
top rank card. I'm not too sure Bob Arum will return a compliment, but I see what you mean. Bivol's very, very educated, and that's what I like about Bivol. I think I also think as well. I mean, I might be speaking out of turn here, but you're not thinking that fight against Craig Richards perhaps dampens people's expectations of Bivol a little bit?
I 100% agree with that. To be totally honest, I think, you know, let's be honest. If Craig Richards had just put his foot down in a couple of rounds at the right time, he'd have probably won that. He'd have got the decision for that fight. It was a very close fight.
Or
And
would it
don't
have
get
been
me
even
wrong,
closer than it was if he was a bit more confident in what he was doing, Craig Richards,
yeah,
wouldn't he?
definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, and I do also think, to be fair to Craig Richards, you know, you think that opportunity he could have got if he'd have got that fight. And, you know, obviously it's a change now. He's lost to Boatsi. But, you know, there were a lot of calls for a rematch after that first fight because he did cause Bivol some problems. I do agree Bivol never really seemed to get in gear and start and, you know, put his own foot down.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, that's the fight. You know, it's harsh to say to Craig Richards, oh, you know, he still did what he had to do. So it's interesting times. But, I mean, just one last point from me. If Callum Smith can get active, because let's be honest, inactivity has been the biggest issue for him, I think he cleans up at light heavyweight. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I would say so on the basis that Bivol and Beterbiev. I mean, Beterbiev, it could be a case of catching him at the right time, but
Mm.
when Beterbiev lands, I'm not. I'll be honest and say I'm not. I wouldn't care how old Beterbiev is. His power is just going to be too
Mm.
much. Bivol has got a different skill set to Callum Smith. I just love the way he effortlessly gets in and out of range. But then again, Callum Smith has got his own attributes. When he uses his jab, it's really effective because it's so long, and he's got probably one of the best left hooks, particularly to the body, that I've not seen that since Ricky Hatton from a British fighter. You know, and he's a lot better on the inside than people give him credit for. I just don't know what Callum Smith. He needs to be really active for me, and we need to see him in better tests than light heavy for me to make that comment. It's a bold comment, and I'm a massive Callum Smith fan. I thought he was arguably the best at super middleweight. He got beaten by Canelo, and Canelo's at the time the best fighter in the world, in my opinion. He's still in the top three. Not what they're saying he is now. I just think that, you know, when you look at who Beterbiev's fought, particularly more Beterbiev, Callum Smith needs to be fighting those guys that he's already beaten.
Mm.
He had that good win when he got that hurt well. It was a real highlight reel KO, didn't he? When he
Scary.
made his light heavy, it was really scary for his opponent, horrible to watch, but it was a beautiful knockout nonetheless. But I want to see him. There's a few people I would like to see him against. Put him in with somebody like a Baru Jack and Elida Alvarez. Put him in with somebody of that ilk. If he gets another highlight reel KO or an emphatic performance, then we can talk about him in that mix. So there's a few tests I want to see him come through before I can see he can clean up at light heavyweight, because that's one of my favorite divisions. Really explosive.
Do you just quickly? Do you think Callum Johnson's finished at light heavy? Obviously, he's aged himself. Is he 35? Obviously,
Yeah. I mean, he's younger than Beterbiev. I just think with Callum Johnson, I just don't think he got the opportunity. He's been getting the opportunities in his career. I don't think he got them enough in the first instance from Frank Warren. I don't think he got them when they're Eddie Hearn, and he's gone back to Frank. And I don't think he's getting those opportunities with Frank. When he has been out, he's been out against, no disrespect to them, but opponents nobody really cares about. You know, from Eastern Europe. I understand they want him to get a little bit active, but there's bigger and better fights out there for Callum Johnson. And if I was Callum Johnson, I'd be really frustrated. In my opinion, he's been a wasted talent, and it's not being of his own accord. He should have had those opportunities, because if you had said to me, Ray, did you think Callum Johnson will be a world champion and unified? I would have said yes. He had all the ability. He was really aggressive, really strong, really physical. He floored Beterbiev, and it was a lack of experience. You know, he put it on Beterbiev too much, just like what you were saying again when you've nailed the point on the head, as you've done quite often. What I would have said is it's about sometimes you need that experience, that calmness, just to take a couple of steps back. Don't smother your work. Don't rush in. Don't get greedy. Callum Johnson got a little bit too greedy and he ended up paying the price in the fourth round. If he didn't get so greedy, he could have paced himself and perhaps could have stopped Beterbiev later on. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of the British fighters, because they're getting sometimes they're not getting these warm-up fights, these fights against gatekeepers to test their skills, and they get thrown straight into it. And then, they're getting greedy because they feel as though they need to take the opportunity. They need the calmness, and that comes with experience against these other gatekeepers. And that's what Callum Smith needs to get to that level. And Callum Johnson needed more of that before he got that fight with Beterbiev.
That's a great point. That is, guys. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think on this fight and the light heavyweight scene on the whole. If you are new here and you're still with us, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. We've got lots more great content, so keep your eyes peeled, and we'll see you on the next one.